Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in the heart of Tanzania, there lived a man named Juma. He worked tirelessly as a farmer, tending to other people's fields to make ends meet. Despite their modest means, Juma always ensured his wife and children were well cared for and content. Juma's wife, Amina, was a hardworking woman who sold vegetables and fruits in the local market. Every morning, she would rise with the sun, carefully preparing her goods with a cheerful smile before heading off to support their family. Together, Juma and Amina had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter named Zuri, who was known throughout the village for her beauty and kind heart. Life in their small home was simple but filled with love and laughter. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Juma would return from the fields, his body weary but his spirit content. Amina would greet him with a warm meal, while their children rushed to embrace him, their faces beaming with excitement. The family would gather around, sharing stories and jokes, their modest dwelling echoing with the sounds of happiness. As the years passed, Juma noticed a change in the way his friends treated him. Many of them had become wealthier, owning their own farms or businesses, while Juma remained a humble laborer. Slowly but surely, these once close companions began to distance themselves, embarrassed to be seen with someone of Juma's lowly status. Though it pained him, Juma reminded himself that his family's love was worth more than any material wealth. One fateful day, news spread through the village of a grand celebration to be held at the chief's compound. Everyone was invited, and Juma saw this as an opportunity to reconnect with his old friends. He donned his best clothes, a faded but clean shirt and trousers, and made his way to the gathering with hope in his heart. As Juma arrived at the chief's compound, he was met with a sight that made his heart sink. His former friends were huddled together, laughing and feasting on elaborate dishes, their fine clothes a stark contrast to Juma's simple attire. When they noticed him approaching, their laughter died down, replaced by awkward glances and hushed whispers. Mustering his courage, Juma stepped forward to greet them. "Jambo, my friends! It's been too long," he said with a warm smile. But instead of the welcome he had hoped for, he was met with cold stares and turned backs. One of his oldest friends, Bakery, who had grown wealthy from his successful shop, sneered at Juma. "Look who's here, the village pauper. Did you come to beg for scraps, Juma?" The cruel words cut deep, and Juma felt a surge of anger and humiliation wash over him. He clenched his fists, fighting back the urge to lash out at Bakery. Instead, he took a deep breath and replied calmly, "I came to celebrate with my community, Bakery. We were once like brothers. Has your wealth made you forget the value of true friendship?" Bakery's face twisted with contempt. "Friendship? What use is a friend who can offer nothing in return? You're nothing but a burden, Juma. Go back to your miserable hut and leave us be." The other men laughed, their voices dripping with mockery. Juma stood there, rooted to the spot, as waves of betrayal and anger crashed over him. He looked around at the faces of those he once called friends, now distorted by greed and arrogance. In that moment, something inside Juma snapped. Without another word, he turned and stormed away from the gathering, his mind clouded with dark thoughts. As he walked home, the laughter and jeers of his former friends echoed in his ears, fueling a rage he had never known before. By the time he reached his small home, Juma was seething with a toxic mixture of humiliation, envy, and unbridled anger. He burst through the door, startling Amina and the children. "Juma, what's wrong?" Amina asked, concern etched on her face. But Juma was beyond reason. He paced the small room like a caged animal, muttering under his breath about injustice and revenge. Zuri, his beautiful daughter, approached him cautiously. "Baba, please tell us what happened. We want to help," she said softly, reaching out to touch his arm. But in his state of blind fury, Juma saw not his loving daughter, but a reminder of everything he lacked: beauty, youth, and the promise of a better future. In a moment of madness that would haunt him forever, Juma grabbed Zuri by the arm and dragged her outside. Amina and the boys cried out in shock, but Juma was beyond hearing. He pulled Zuri towards the large wooden mortar used for pounding grain, his eyes wild with an uncontrollable rage. "You think you're better than me?" he shouted, his voice unrecognizable even to himself. "You think you can escape this life of poverty? I'll show you what becomes of dreams in this cruel world." With inhuman strength fueled by his anger, Juma lifted Zuri and forced her into the mortar. The girl's screams pierced the night air as Juma picked up the heavy pestle. Amina and the boys rushed out, begging and pleading with Juma to stop, but their cries fell on deaf ears. As the village looked on in horror, Juma began to pound, each strike of the pestle accompanied by his anguished roars. The sickening thuds echoed through the village, a testament to how quickly a man could fall from grace when consumed by hatred and envy. It wasn't until Zuri's cries had long since faded that Juma finally stopped, the pestle slipping from his blood-stained hands. As the fog of rage lifted, the full weight of what he had done crashed down upon him. He fell to his knees, wailing in agony as he realized he had destroyed the very thing he had always cherished most, his family. The villagers, who had watched in stunned silence, now moved to restrain Juma. Amina collapsed beside the mortar, her heartbreaking sobs mixing with the shocked murmurs of the crowd. The two sons stood frozen, unable to comprehend the horror they had just witnessed. As dawn broke over the village, news of Juma's heinous act spread like wildfire. The once respected farmer was now a monster in the eyes of his community. He was bound and taken to face the village elders, his fate sealed by his own hands. In the days that followed, the village mourned the loss of young Zuri. Juma, locked away and awaiting judgment, was left to grapple with the consequences of his actions. The friends who had spurned him now spoke of him with disgust and fear, their earlier cruelty forgotten in light of his unforgivable crime. Amina and her remaining children were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. The home that was once filled with laughter and love now stood as a grim reminder of how quickly happiness could turn to tragedy. The village rallied around them, offering support and comfort, but nothing could fill the void left by Zuri's absence. As for Juma, his punishment was severe. The elders, after much deliberation, decided that death would be too merciful. Instead, he was sentenced to live out his days in isolation, far from the village, with only his guilt and regret for company. Each day, he would be forced to pound grain in a mortar similar to the one he had used to end his daughter's life, a constant, cruel reminder of his unforgivable act. The tale of Juma and his daughter became a cautionary story, whispered around fires and told to children as a warning against the dangers of envy, anger, and betrayal. It served as a stark reminder that true wealth lies not in material possessions or social status, but in the love and bonds of family, treasures that, once destroyed, can never be reclaimed. And so, the once happy family of Juma became a tragic legend in Tanzania, a somber testament to the destructive power of unchecked emotions and the fragility of human relationships. The village learned a harsh lesson about the importance of compassion and the devastating consequences of ostracizing those less fortunate. As years passed, the story of Juma and Zuri continued to be told, a dark chapter in the village's history that served as a grim reminder of how quickly a person can fall from grace. It became a tale of caution, urging people to cherish their loved ones and to never let anger or envy consume their hearts. For in the end, it is not wealth or status that defines a person, but the love they give and the legacy they leave behind.